come once again to discuss things.
It's a late morning, I'll admit, but it's still the morning.
On that note, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Partu. Joining me today is Bill Worcester, aka Zazubar, aka Ass Hat.
Well, you know what? It's still the fucking morning. Audience, what do you think qualifies as the morning? You tell me. I don't know. I'm just a poor white man trying to make it in this world. What am I supposed to know?
Oh, well, all of us should feel bad for the poor white man
exactly.
in this situations.
I'd love to get an egg sandwich afternoon, but I can't do that. We live in a fucking society with rules, and I have to abide by those rules.
Well, anyway, so Bill, what are we talking about today?
Today, in an ever-continuing mission to review old short horror stories, we are going back, way, way back, to an important time, to the beginning of an esteemed career, which is something that I don't think we've done. We did The Monkey's Paw last week, which I don't think was the beginning of an esteemed career. As far as I know, that gentleman could have gone on to do many great things. I don't know. I don't even remember his name. But I remember this guy's name. This guy has a name that everybody should remember. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going back to the beginning of the career of H.P. Lovecraft on tonight's program. Somebody who I got into through Geeky Gentlemen, so I figured this would be fitting. Milan's probably really pissed that he's not here.
I asked him, but he's going to visit his dad.
Oh, okay. Alright, gotcha. So, we're traveling back to the beginning of the career of H.P. Lovecraft to review the first story that he ever wrote, which is called The Beast in the Cave. He wrote it when I believe he was 14.
Yeah, 14 years old and he wrote this.
Yeah.
I thought I was a writer at 14. I couldn't even dream writing
Oh,
something.
no, yeah. Oh, I was writing Godzilla fan fiction when I was 14, and bad Godzilla fan fiction, too. So this shit...
As if there's a distinction.
Well, yeah, you know. I've written better Godzilla fan fiction since then. So yeah, this really makes you feel bad when you were, for when you were writing when you were 14. It's like, this guy wrote a good, quality horror story that's actually scary when he was 14. So
right,
this is really good. So, it's really impressive that he wrote it that young. It's one of those things though where it's sort of lucky that he was born when he was, because this sparked, because I watched a documentary about his life, and this was sparked by his actually going to a cave.
No. Actually, I got the book here, the collected works, and it says that he'd never actually visited a cave.
What?
Yeah.
What fucking story did I hear then?
I don't know.
Really? He's never been in a cave? You know what, though? That makes sense, though, when you read the story, though, because he does very little to actually describe the cave.
Yeah, apparently all of the information we get he got from books at the local library.
Which makes sense, though, because he was a total... He didn't go outside much.
Yeah, he was kind of a shut-in, so... I'm going to trust that over a documentary, because those have a tendency to, lie or just omit important details.
You know what? I think I'm remembering the wrong story. I think there was another one that his wife actually wrote, where they were walking by a beach, and it was similar. Anyway, Anyway, he was inspired to write this as a young man. And it's interesting because it doesn't really... If you gave this to somebody and didn't tell them it was written by H.P. Lovecraft, the only indication that they could possibly have that it was written by H.P. Lovecraft is the language.
Yeah.
And it's definitely got his diction in there. I'm not disputing that. But just on a basic premise, this is pretty tame for Lovecraft.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain indications of what would become his style and the kinds of things that he liked to focus on.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And we'll get more into that in a second. But yeah, the language is the big giveaway because, you read it now and it is, a lot of the word choices are very archaic.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember bringing that up when we did the Geeky Gentleman on Lovecraft all those years ago now.
Yeah.
No, 3 years ago.
3 years ago!
Yeah, like, his language has always been very archaic, and I realized that's gotta be an intentional choice. Like, because it was archaic for the time, too.
Yeah.
Like, the word that, like, made me laugh, because this is the second time I read it, and I actually decided to, like, listen along as I was reading.
Mm-hmm. This is the first time I ever listened to it.
Yeah, like, I was listening along as I was reading, and, like, the one that kind of made me chuckle in that, like, 14-year-old way was the word ejaculation.
Yeah, that's a weird word for the context of where that is, like...
Well, no, I mean, way back in the day, that was a perfectly acceptable use of the word, but by Lovecraft's time, that was, like, totally not what it meant anymore, and it meant the modern context.
Right, exactly. Because it's like...
So, like, he would purposefully do a lot of, like, you know, very archaic... He would put a lot of archaic language into his stuff very intentionally.
Mm-hmm. He was a big fan of the previous century in which he was unfortunately not born. He was a man. Yeah, he was a man born at a time. He wanted to be sort of your classical Victorian gentleman, and he was born post that period where it was unpopular to be that. That was considered sort of outdated.
Yeah, just born in the wrong time, kind of thing.
Absolutely,
born too late.
Definitely. He was born in the wrong era. As I often am when I wear denim. How I feel when I wear denim.
Yeah, I've only been in your 20s back in the 90s, man.
No, I wanted to be born in the 70s. That was the decade of denim. Oh, you could just buy a fucking sexy-ass denim jacket. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of that archaic language comes from that, you know, that's sort of, he's basing it on the language of those people that he sort of aspired to be. So that's where a lot of that comes from. But it became his style, so we look back on that now, and you can definitely criticize it, and especially in this first story, it feels even more archaic than some of his other stuff. It's like, what the fuck is he doing? You know?
I don't know if I'd say that. Like, it doesn't distract except for the word ejaculation, but once again, I just immediately connect with my 14-year-old self, and we both snicker.
I still find that funny now at 21.
Hey, Bill. Poop.
That's still funny to me. Poop is funny. What do you want? Poop is a funny thing. It is inherently a funny thing. Anyway.
Okay.
This is a horror-themed video, not a poop-themed video. We can do that another time.
We'll do a video on the poop monster from Dog.
Absolutely. But there's a lot of word choice in this that just sort of feels like, what does that add to the sentence, you know? Where it's just like, it just feels too sort of, too much like fluff, but that's a thing that young writers do, though. That's what we
like to try to elevate it
and
make it sound smarter than like you try to make it. I remember hearing a statistic at one point actually that it's impossible to write above your age level, but it's always possible to write below.
Yeah.
And I feel like younger writers always try to write above how old they are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because that's where the interesting shit is. Young people are fucking boring. So, especially 14-year-olds. What's happened to a 14-year-old, you know? So, it's a lot of sort of estimation on their part. And a lot of it is pretty bad. I do think that there are young writers. I'm sorry, I'm just getting over being sick. There are young writers who I've seen successfully approximate sort of the older experience and are able to craft compelling older characters who make sense and, you know, sort of do things that make sense for that age. And
I think that's in here. I just think the language seems like he's trying to
I completely agree.
Compensate.
And oh man, in terms of writing an older character, he leaves a lot of the details of who exactly this guy is out, so we don't really know who this guy is or how old he is. So that was definitely a smart decision on his part. So it's definitely somebody who we're supposed to sort of relate to inherently because we don't really know anything about them. I think the only background we get is the guy had a lot of philosophy in his background.
Yeah, he said, like, my studies of philosophy hadn't prepared me for this or something. Which it's funny, because, like, that's kind of a joke on Plato.
Yeah.
Because, like, Plato's whole thing is, like, this, like, the big seminal work of Plato that everyone has to read is The Cave, in which he talks about, like, this guy that was raised in a cave his whole life, and he comes out into the world and starts to see things as they really are, as opposed to the shadows of what they are, and that's Plato's, like, metaphor for what life really is, and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, I think that line is kind of like a quick jab at Plato.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like,
gotcha.
Preparing for the real world, like, experiencing reality has absolutely no bearing on being inside a cave. Does not prepare you for being in a cave at all, or something like that.
Yeah, okay, I gotcha. That's cool.
Kind of funny.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. And also, of course, you got a guy who, got out of the cave after being in it for a long time, and that doesn't happen in this.
Well, like, actually, this is gonna sound weird, but I might be Captain Loganing this, so tell me if you think I'm going too far.
You're going too far.
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
So our character talks about being a studier of philosophy,
mm-hmm.
and then he goes and gets lost in the cave for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just gets curious and kind of goes off, and then is confronted by something that's very primal. Like, he talks about, thinking that's some kind of beast, like a cat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So this might kind of be a dig at intellectualism.
Huh. I don't know if it's intentional. I can definitely see that point, but I doubt that Lovecraft was sort of going for that when he wrote it.
I don't know. It's just like so much of this feels very, very primal, very down to like the roots of humanity, if you will.
Uh-huh.
And he gets in trouble because he's not afraid of being in the cave.
That's
like,
true.
He gets in trouble because he's not afraid of being alone in a cave.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it's just this... I don't know how much this I agree with this. It's just something that hit me right as we were talking about Plato there for a sec. Of everything that this guy does seems to be driven by, an intellectual curiosity as opposed to, a very human primal thing. And I'm kind of drawing on other things I know about Lovecraft, how he's often talking about very primal or very innate ideas that people have about the world, about the way people act
mm-hmm.
in general fear of the world, and how often the scientist character in his horror, which differs tremendously from almost every other horror, is like the scientific character is the idiot. They don't get to win out in the end.
What particular stories are you referring to?
Well, I mean, you look at Call of Cthulhu, and, like, it's this researchers that end up, accidentally waking up Cthulhu, and you look at the,
Shadow at a Time, I guess, would be somewhat, I don't know, that guy's not really an idiot, but he's kind of, I can see your point.
Like, in Shadow or Innsmouth, like, the guy's got this curiosity, this journalistic curiosity, like, like, all of them are knowledge seekers, like, the dude in Colors Out of...
I get your point, yeah.
Yeah, like, they're all seeking knowledge, and then they uncover this vast, unknowable, or horrible situation, in this case, and suddenly everything they know is completely thrown out the window and useless, and it's their fault they're in the situation anyway.
Oh, I get you. That is absolutely at the core of all of Lovecraft's work. His whole mantra was always, the most powerful emotion humans feel is fear. And the most powerful fear that we have is of the unknown. And the probing of the unknown is something that Lovecraft was vehemently against. He was a huge xenophobe and didn't like to leave his hometown. So the very idea of new experiences and probing something that you weren't sure about was terrifying to him. So all of
it's funny to read Lovecraft then after watching so much fucking Star Trek. Because those are, like, the most fundamentally opposed philosophies.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Ever.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. His stuff is very sort of, like, thematically, a lot of it's really dated. Like, it's the Shadow over Innsmouth, very dated thematic story. Because it's very sort of, racist and, you know, very, like, you know, sort of anti sort of mixed breeding and everything, so, like, that whole story is a fucking allegory for interracial relationships, so.
Fair enough, but I still think it's a good story on its own.
That's a great story. I love The Shadow over Innsmouth, but just thematically, it doesn't work today.
I mean, yeah, I'd have to agree with you, and it's unfortunate because I know Lovecraft was a very, very stout racist.
Oh, yeah, he was not. I wouldn't go as far to say he was a bad person because he had a fucked up life, but he was not a great guy.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and talk just about the story itself.
Sure.
So,
it's very short. Calm.
Yeah, that fear of the unknown, though, is incredibly present. I mean, you are in the most unknowable situation where your senses are taken away from you because it's a cave, so everything feels exactly the same. It's black as night, so you can't see anything. There are echoes, so anything you hear you can't trust. What are you going to do, lick the rocks?
Yeah.
So there's absolutely every single sense you have, which... Again, you know, science is based on empiricism, and empiricism means through the senses, so I think there's actually more and more to this the more I'm thinking about it, which is so crazy that much of his style was cemented this early on in his career.
Yeah. Yeah. He did go through a period, though, where he tried to sort of move away from it.
Maybe. I don't know, I haven't read that stuff, and, like, that's why I wanted to get this book and get through everything.
Mm-hmm. You definitely see a progression and sort of a couple of dips and all that stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, but, like, you're in the most unknowable situation ever, in which the only thing you can kind of vaguely trust is your sense of sound.
Yeah.
But even that's, you know, iffy at best.
Oh, yeah, because of the echoes. I mean, he makes a wildly inaccurate... Well, not wildly inaccurate... this character makes a pretty inaccurate assertion of what this animal is, just based on its sound. The only thing that he nails is the fact that it sometimes walks on 4 legs and sometimes on 2. That's all he knows.
And I don't know how he'd be able to tell that. I could never tell that.
You could probably tell that pretty easily, because what he describes is that when you hear an animal walking on 4 legs, you sort of hear, like, an irregular sort of clip-clap, you know, it sort of sounds like a bunch of things happening at once. But something walking on 2 legs is a very distinctive sort of, you know, we all watched Jurassic Park as kids. We all remember the boom, boom, boom. You see, you know, that's what you hear when you hear things walking on 2 legs. When something's walking on 4 legs, it's a very different experience.
All right, fair enough.
But anyway, but in a cave, you could still, the echoes would be the thing that would fuck you up.
Yeah, so there's just, like, there's absolutely nothing that he can hold on to here.
No.
And that's really fascinating. Everything about this, wow, it's so crazy to see this much of his style, because I didn't even think about this till we started the video.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I didn't think about any of that either, so. I will, to go back to a point you made earlier, though, about how he's sort of only motivated by his intellectual sort of curiosity. I will disagree, though, because I feel, on this one point, I feel like part of the punch of the story with the ending is that he makes a really rash judgment about what to do with this animal, you know, by the fact that he decides to fucking lob rocks at it and kill it. And of course, you know, what else is he gonna do? He thinks it's a wild animal. What else is he gonna do? But...
Well, I wasn't talking about that point. I was talking about the thing that got him into the situation.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Yeah, definitely then. That's absolutely his own fault. He's a fucking idiot. Don't wander off in caves, kids. I mean, what are you doing? You don't know your way in a fucking cave. But, as if, like...
This message brought to you by Zazzle.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more you know.
Yeah. By the way, also, fucking give people matches when you... Back in those days when you needed to use torches, give people spare matches. What's wrong with you? People might get lost. Give them a couple of fucking matches. What the fuck is wrong with you, cave guide?
Zessubar's guided cave tours.
I give my people matches. But sort of the punch of the story is that he decides to kill this thing without any knowledge of what it is, just out of self-preservation. And then it turns out that he kind of fucked up because it turned out to be a dude. So, or, sort of turned out to have once been a dude.
Certainly.
So, it definitely sort of bites him in the ass that he got in the situation in the first place by a sense of intellectual curiosity, but then he got into another situation by the fact that, he jumped to a conclusion and made sort of a poor choice. Now, we don't know what that guy was thinking. What was he going to do with this guy? Because...
Yeah, I mean, the guy had been there for apparently, years at least, if his hair's all white and his eyes are completely black.
He's clearly not animalistic, but who knows what he was going to do. I doubt he was going to try and eat the guy.
Maybe. You never know. That's the curious thing. I wonder... Because, there's a passage toward the end where the guy mouths something, or, some sounds leave his mouth.
He says chattering, so it's got to be some kind of... something verbal.
Yeah, something
I really wish
we knew... Yeah, I really wish we knew what the guy said.
Lovecraft does dialogue really weird. Have you ever noticed that? He doesn't do traditional dialogue, because all of his stuff is told retrospectively through, a journal entry. So, you don't really get conversations between people, and you don't get dialogue in real time like you do in most books. So, it's really weird when he describes what other characters are saying, but when other characters are describing it. I re-listened to Shadow over Innsmouth recently, and that's a problem that I have with that story. That, some stuff he just sort of describes as, oh, and then this guy said this. And then other stuff, he lets the people talk. And it's kind of inconsistent, and that bugs me. But in this case, I think, it's not really a huge deal. But it would have been nice to have known, well, what exactly was the chattering? Because that would give you an indication of, oh, this is a guy, not a fucking ape. Not just a random ape. So...
No, I really want to know, if it had been language, that would have been perfect, but to be fair, that kind of diminishes just how long the guy's been in the cave, but...
Yeah.
I'm curious what, if he had said something, what would the character have said? What would the dying words have been? Because I'm curious whether or not the thing was intending to hurt him or not.
It couldn't have been...
I'm torn on it because I don't know. We really aren't clear enough about that by that twist ending, right?
Think about this, though. Think about the way the guy is described. He's described as incredibly skinny and pale white. There's no way, if he thought that was a dude, which he might not have, but he probably would have assumed that it's a bigger animal. There's no way he would have thought to try and take it down because he's too weak. He's probably, he's picking off bats and fish and stuff. He's probably not nourished enough to try and take down another big animal.
Fair, but at the same time, the idea is the thing came... Then the idea gives me that it came running to him because he heard him scream, right?
Yeah.
So
maybe he assumed that he was already injured and that he could, do some
Yeah,
damage that way.
Yeah, you could take it that way, or you could take it that he finally had a chance at rescue.
That's how I analyze that. I would assume that he heard a human sound and thought, oh, maybe I can actually get out of here now.
Yeah, certainly. And I don't know, it seems like I don't know about a cave. I think you could get out of it. Maybe I just have a really good sense of direction, but I think I could get out of a cave before, my fucking eyes
also
transmutated.
Yeah. Also, if this cave is regularly visited by sightseers,
right?
How is he stuck in there? He can't be staying in one specific passage. If you're stuck in a cave, you would go everywhere. You would try every passage, because you're going to die anyway, so try everything.
Yeah, so, I think that's maybe a
huge
I don't want to say a
problem.
plot hole. I don't want to say a problem or a plot hole. It is a weakness in the story, because I don't really think of that until, this is my second time reading the story, and we got quite a bit into this conversation before either of us thought to bring it up.
I think I thought that when I first read it, though.
Okay, because I certainly didn't.
No, I think I remember thinking, wait a second, if this cave has sightseers, why is... Now, though, I just thought of something, though. We don't know anything about this character, though. What if he doesn't want to be found?
That's certainly possible, too.
Because they do kind of set up the idea of people getting lost in caves and going feral early on with the people who what do they call I forget what they called them, the consumptioners or whatever, they went into the grotto and got lost and went feral. They set that up early on, so they set up that idea before the twist even happens. Which is smart. But yeah, we don't know anything about this guy. He probably should have given some detail about... Nah, but that twist is so good, though. That ending is so perfect.
Yeah, that Beast had been a man, so if we, heard him say something, or if it went on beyond... It would have felt too heavy-handed, I agree.
It's so perfect. Well, not perfect. It's so satisfying. When I first read that story, my God, it hit me so hard. Just the reveal that it's a dude, you know?
Did you call it, or did it genuinely hit you as a surprise?
I didn't call it. I sort of suspected it as a possibility. But you also got to remember that I'm somebody who is, fascinated and very knowledgeable about Bigfoot mythology. So when I was reading this the first time, I was like, oh, is he doing, a Bigfoot thing? Because that's what it sounded like he was describing. But
okay,
but as you sort of as you read it, it sort of becomes more and more clear that this is a guy that's been, lost in the cave. But I didn't call it. It was just sort of an idea that was in the back of my mind. But that reveal definitely still hits me.
I definitely called it before the reveal happened. Is the thing.
I wasn't certain of it. I just sort of suspected, maybe this is just a guy. Now, the other thing is, we talked about stories like this being influential last week. This is definitely something that has been extremely influential, because that whole idea of you kill something that you think is a monster when really it's just a guy has been done 1,000 times since then.
Got an example off the top of your head?
I'm really glad you asked. Because just as soon as I said that, I was like, shit, now I have to think of an example. Damn it, now I'm trying to think.
I know it's hard, Bill.
I know they exist, but I have to think of it now. Oh, boy. It's on the tip of my mind. It is on the tip of my mind. Oh, okay, perfect example. I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie that I saw once on Chiller where a girl's boyfriend dressed up as a serial killer for Halloween, and he broke into their house after he had left, having visited there. He wasn't dressed in the costume
Gotcha.
before he left. He came back, played a prank on his girlfriend, trying to scare the hell out of her and her brother, and the brother, thinking it was an actual serial killer, stabbed him and killed him.
Okay.
So that whole idea of you think you think you're in one situation, and then it turns out that you're in another situation and you killed the guy by accident. I'm trying to think of a better example though, of something you thought it was a monster, and it turned out to just be a guy. You know what? There's a lot of werewolf stories that sort of play with that idea where, somebody will kill in the original Wolfman movie, it's in it. Lawrence Talbot beats the crap out of that wolf, and then it turns into a man, and he thinks he's just killed a guy by accident. So it's in the original Wolfman story.
Okay. So yeah, it's around quite a bit, and I do agree. I was just trying to think of an example as well.
I couldn't either.
I was hoping you had some.
Well, I pulled some out of my ass.
Yeah, certainly this has been influential, and we've had a lot of movies lately, last couple decades at least, that have kind of drawn from this with the idea of unknown things in a cave, like
The Descent.
What was that piece? Yeah, The Descent.
That's not a piece of shit.
I thought it was bad.
The one with all the women that go in the cave and they find the white monster man.
Yeah.
You didn't like that movie?
No.
I really enjoyed that.
Okay.
I really dug that movie. Those creatures were fucking awesome.
Okay.
Did you know when they shot that, they didn't let the people who were playing the monsters talk to the women because they didn't want them to, like, think of them as people.
Okay, then. No, but Descent clearly borrowed from this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Bill. I didn't like the movie.
No, it's fine. It's cool.
Get off my case, Bill.
No, it's fine, Ian. It's fine. You're allowed to not like things. It's a thing it's one of your freedoms.
One of them?
One of them. You have like 5.
Oh, good. Fundamental human rights. You're allowed to not like the Descent.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of your 5 freedoms. The other 4 are all whether or not you're allowed to like certain movies. There's only 5 movies you're allowed to have opinions on.
Okay, then. Anyway. Well, Hellraiser gets a down vote, so there you go.
Yeah, I didn't want to watch Hellraiser. When you texted me like, "Oh, you want to do that?" I was like, "Well, I am really sick, but I also don't want to watch Hellraiser because I don't."
Ouch. Anyway, so what else with this though?
I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. It's a very simplistic story.
It is. It certainly is. And I think it is very indicative of what would become Lovecraft's style. And it's just amazing that he wrote something this good when he was that young. Mm-hmm. My God. I'm, like, ashamed to go back and look at the things I wrote when I was 14 years old.
Oh, yeah, I would never. It's just... I just can't do it.
What about the comedy stylings of 13-year-old Bill?
Oh, I did that. Did that as a joke, though. Or Josh Brolin. Wow. Anyway. Is there anything that you specifically didn't like about it? I feel like I was more negative about this than you were.
Like I say, some of the language with Lovecraft, I get that he's doing it intentionally, but at the same time, you know, you should write for your audience, not what you hope to read.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, at this time, though, he was writing for himself.
See, I don't know how much I could agree with that, because what 14-year-old truly does do it just for themselves?
Really?
I think
that's the only reason I wrote when I was 14. It was just for me. I wasn't planning on anybody reading it.
Really? I don't know. A lot of 14-year-olds, like, a lot of writers I talk to that started young, they're always like, oh, I'd always hoped that, like, some teacher would find my story and then, like, think it was genius and it would suddenly be published and I'd be famous kind of thing.
I stopped giving my writing to teachers after, like, fucking, like, when I was 11, because they had no constructive criticism to offer. You know, which is weird, because they're teachers. That's what they're there for.
They should be encouraging that behavior, but no.
But no, they're just like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's like, well, gee, thanks.
It's like, kid, quit it. You suck.
No, it wasn't even, like, that would be constructive criticism. No, it's just like, they would just be like, yeah, it's fine. It's like, no, that's not what I'm looking for.
They don't want to hurt your feelings, Bill.
Exactly, that's a problem. Hurt my feelings. Jesus, tell me if it's actually good.
Spit in my eye.
Yeah, well, if it's warranted, don't just spit in my eye for the sake of spitting in my eye, but, you know. You know what? There is one piece of my writing. I think I actually wrote this when I was 14. There was a shark story I wrote called The Jaws of Passion. Terrible title, but I actually think the story was actually kind of clever. It was about this guy. He's a huge fanatic of sharks, and he's filming sharks. He gets attacked by sharks.
Becomes a humanoid shark.
No. And he just sort of spends the rest of the story just sort of floating there dying, sort of trying to figure out whether or not now he hates sharks. And at the end of the story, he decides, nah, they're still pretty awesome. And it's just sort of him retrospectively thinking about his life. See? Good things can be written when you're 14.
I'm sure, like, I think I could go back to some of my stuff, like, the premise is good, it's the execution that's the problem.
Oh, yeah, it's probably really shittily written, but that idea's not bad.
That, and, like, I plagiarized just things that I thought sounded cool from random movies, like, God, I was watching Sin City the other day, and I stole a line right out of that movie, and I don't even remember what the fucking line was right now, but I stole a line, like, why did I steal that? That's a terrible line. That sounds really dumb. Or like I'd think things that people said in movies were a thing, so I'd write them, and it's not really a thing that people say. I don't know. It's weird.
I steal names from movies all the time.
That's fine, but yeah, no, I'd steal like a straight line and like act like it was a normal thing that people talked about, and it totally wasn't.
Gotcha.
So anyway, yeah, like I do think some of the language, and I mean that's just the thing with Lovecraft, is the language is always going to be very dated, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just makes it like harder to get into from a modern standpoint.
Lovecraft
and
is not
it
for
shouldn't
everyone.
be a problem, but he wrote it so late or so recently that it is.
Yeah, you see, it's weird. You think it's older than it actually is, you know? Like, he wrote this, like, during the time of, like, you know, F. Scott Fitzgerald, you know? It's like, you go back and you read The Great Gatsby, and it's like, this is not, you know...
Yeah.
Not the same thing.
Because, like, it's very Poe-ish. It is very inspired by Poe.
Oh, yeah,
like,
he was a huge fan of Poe.
Yeah, I feel like this is somewhere just after Poe, and it's like Poe merged with Stoker.
Yeah, well, it feels more modern than Poe just because it feels more directly sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's the sort of only mark you have of when this was written, is the fact that it's more direct, normal, standard science fiction. There's nothing sort of overtly, religious about it, or everything sort of has a basis in actual scientific theory. You know, all his monsters, scientific creatures that come from other dimensions. You know, none of them are, you know, sort of demons or anything that's sort of, you know, outside of the realm of actual scientific possibility. You know?
Yeah. I guess. I don't know how... I wouldn't stress the word actual.
Well, no, what I mean, though, is like, you know, string theory, you know. These creatures come from other dimensions, and if they can come from other dimensions, well, then how do we know what creatures can look like in that other dimension, you know?
Okay.
You know, it's like
All
that
right.
Doctor Who thing, where it's like, well, if you can accept this one thing, then you can accept this other thing.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But yeah, I think it's still a really good book, or a really good story.
It's fantastic,
and everything. So let's go ahead and do a quick rating. I guess I'll give this 4 out of 5 octopi.
Octopi.
Because it's Lovecraft, so...
Oh, okay. Alright, I can top that. That's easy. Wow. Sorry, Ian. I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 matches that guy should have had. That guy is a piece of shit, and he should have given him some matches. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one, on the rating.
Yeah. Alright, so Bill, you know what we're talking about next time?
What are we talking about next time, Ian?
I flipped back and forth on this for the longest time, but I finally came down on a hard decision here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to discuss Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, because it's one of my favorite horror stories of all time.
All right, I'm down for doing some Poe. I haven't read Edgar Allan Poe since I was in high school, so I'm down.
Yeah, it was either going to be that or The Black Cat, but I love The Telltale Heart too much.
Okay. I haven't read that one, so I'm excited.
Really? Telltale Heart?
No.
Wow. Oh, this is great. I'm so excited. All right, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the Fanatic.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing them.
Give out matches in caves, damn it.
Ha